Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Austria is still waiting after 7 years to get their gold. There's a valuable lesson here. Let's explore. I'm going to be referencing an article here in a moment about how Austria has made a request to have gold in their possession, their gold. But you know the saying, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Well, one could make the argument that, well, just because it's not there does not mean that it's not their gold. But any number of things could happen whenever you have any assets that are held by a counterparty. That's why there's counterparty risk. And so, notwithstanding, that is something that could very well have occurred. You know, they say possession is 9/10 of the law, although I don't know how that works in the international monetary system between these central banks. Maybe we can find out from the Bank of International Settlements, who is the central bank of central bankers, especially when Basel III rules come into play. I'm going to be referencing a blog post here, posted and hosted by Gainesville Coins by Jan Neuenhaus, that talks about the history of what's happened here and why it has not arrived yet. Austrian monetary gold transfer from London to Switzerland, what was planned in 2015, still has not arrived. It was conceived by the Austrian Central Bank in 2015 to move 50 tons of their monetary gold from London to Switzerland that has not been realized 7 years later. Here's an introduction to what could possibly have happened. Since 2007, the Austrian Central Bank, which we'll denote as OENB for Österreich, the National Bank, we'll just go OENB, owns a few kilos short of 280 tons of gold. In a report released by the Austrian Court of Audits from February 2015, it stated Austria was holding too much of its metal in London at the Bank of England. You know, the Bank of England stores a lot of gold. Here's a photograph of the gold in the Bank of London with their with trademark blue towers there. Blue does go well with gold for sure, so it's kind of apropos there. Nonetheless, it concluded that the audits, that all contracts between OENB and its external depositories, but mainly the one in England, contained deficiencies and auditing measures were lacking. Yes, another good reason. You know, who knows how they can play with the numbers to see what's really there, or what's not there, or what they don't want you to think it's there. Soon after the Austrian Central Bank announced the new storage concept, contracts with external depositories would be reviewed and amended. 90 tons stored at the Bank of England would be repatriated, and 50 tons would be transferred from London to Switzerland. Within 5 years, by 2020, the new storage concept should have been completed. Still, that's quite a long time. And here's a little chart from the Austrian Central Bank that shows what was happening there. 50 tons here, less than 6 tons, and about 224 tons there. And they would take away this much movement of that gold to Austria, to Switzerland, and left with 84 tons there. In 2018, the Austrian Central Bank announced to have repatriated 90 tons from London ahead of schedule. Up to 50% of OENB's gold was brought home, divided between the Austrian Central Bank's own vaults, which is 90 tons, and the vaults of the Austrian Mint, which is 50 tons. Obviously, the Austrian Mint needs that gold for coins. The transfer of gold from London to Switzerland, however, wasn't done yet. From January 2020 up until January of 2022, there was a graph on the Austrian Central Bank's website suggesting all metal that was supposed to be located in Switzerland had arrived. Though, in the fine print it read, by 2020 at the latest, the Austrian Central Bank will have completed the implementation of its gold storage policy in Switzerland. Here we can see this graph from their site. Yes, indeed. It's very likely that up until today, none of the gold that was planned to be transferred from London to Switzerland has arrived. somewhere after the January 2022. The graph above disappeared from OENB's website. Now the web page reads, the relocation from London to Switzerland has been postponed until organizational and logistical obstacles have been resolved. In an email that was written to Jan from the Austrian Central Bank, it says, we can confirm that the relocation has been postponed. However, we are not allowed to disclose any details in order to comply with contractual obligations to keep business secrets of external partners involved. Well, yeah, it certainly does make sense. For a fact, the Austrian Central Bank knew the transfer would be delayed long before 2022, and the OENB's annual report in 2015, the original plan is shown. 90 tons would be repatriated for the Bank of England, and 50 tons would be transferred from the UK to Switzerland by 2020 to store 50% in Austria and 30% in the UK, and 20% in Switzerland. The same deadline was disclosed in their annual report in 2016. And so here we can see the gold holding, the storage by delivery option in these three pie graphs here. We can see Austria, United Kingdom, and Switzerland, and how the breakdown is for 2020. The original plan was first adapted in OENB's annual report in 2017. The deadline was dropped and replaced by new gold storage policy. Meanwhile, zero gold had arrived in Switzerland by then. Still, 3% was stored in Switzerland, the same as prior to the new gold storage concept. And then we can see here the new gold storage policy. You can see half of it is in Austria. There we can see in this pie chart at the right-hand side. Based on the publication dates of the report, OENB must have concluded the shipments towards Switzerland would be postponed in between May 2017 and May 2018, repatriating gold from London when as scheduled. And what could possibly have happened in between May of 2017 and May 2018 that have made OENB have to wait for more than 6 years to move its gold from London to Switzerland? Due to the complexity of the investigation, Jan has decided to publish his analysis in multiple parts, at least 3 as I see it now, in forthcoming articles. They'll zoom in on the role of the BOE, the Bank of International Settlements, and the vaults of the Swiss Central Bank, where the gold was supposed to be now. And I think, we can get into the weeds with this, and it'd be kind of interesting to see where this plays out, some theories. But in a sense, we kind of really don't need to dive in too much further, although one could certainly speculate on what's going on. And essentially, Mr. Neuenhaus was going to be guessing here, probably a very educated guess, but nonetheless a guess all the same. And that leads us to the lesson that we can take away from this, no matter what the conclusions could be, because there could be some very legitimate reasons why the gold has taken so long to arrive, even though they did expect some delays, and it does take some time and paperwork and all of that to make it occur. The lesson here is that, do you really own it if you don't hold it? And in a sense, on paper you do, but with accounting figures, as we talked about, stuff could be, if you don't have the right paperwork and can't prove it with the paperwork, or they just dismiss it, it's where the gold is. And making that happen. I remember it was probably around that same time, around 2015, 2016, Germany wanted to repatriate some of their gold, and it was rehypothecated. In other words, gold that was essentially set aside for Germany in the Bank of England had been replaced with other gold or remelted down. So there could be trace. Well, they say that's not that big of a deal. These good delivery bars are 400 ounces each, about 27 pounds. Does it really matter what's stamped on them? Well, it does to a degree, because you know that gold was in line, that was stamped with the right markings to know that's Germany's gold. And I do believe that, hey, if you are going to store gold somewhere else, it's good to have it stamped. This is Austria's gold. This is Turkey's gold, and so forth and so on, so that there's not that temptation to have it rehypothecated. Nonetheless, as good as the intentions could be for London, you never know what could happen. It could be a supply chain issue or a war that could fracture any kind of supply chain to bring the gold to Austria, that could sever the travel routes. And so therefore, it's good to have security closer to home. But on some hands, like in World War II, many of these European nations, these Western European nations, sent their gold to London and also to the United States for fear of Nazi control and takeover of the gold. So there is that aspect of it as well too. In the end, maybe a reference of both things and having the ability to understand, that yes, sometimes third-party risk is necessary, and that certainly does seem to be the case here with Austria, with their gold right now, or maybe even in times of war, where it's a good idea to have it stored off-site. I know for me personally, I do store a lot of it, most of it off-site, but I do have the ability to get to it pretty much whenever I need it. There are some occasions where it doesn't fall into place, and it is a unique situation, but there's still counterparty risk. In the end, it's really up to you to secure your own gold and silver, and so that if you do have any stored in your home, it's good to have it well guarded, well protected, and that is really the bottom line, and well hidden as well too. So therefore, what is it about? The lesson here is that yes, sometimes risk is necessary. Well, there's always risk in anything we do when you really think about it. What it all boils down to, we always are playing at some level of risk, because even if you do have the gold and other people know about it in your home and you feel like you're well protected, there's a risk that it could be stolen. There's a risk that you could be injured or killed as it's stolen as well too. So the best thing to do is have contingencies in place. And if you are to store it off-site, make sure you have an agreement. Make sure they are trustworthy, no matter where it is and no matter how it's stored. So very interesting indeed. These central bank gold holding figures and stats and what they're doing is quite fascinating. It is a little bit another kind of a unique part of this channel, as I like to report on things like this. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this video. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.